In this video, I will be discussing, from my personal experience, what makes For Honor have such a toxic environment, and I think for this topic to be fully discussed, it would take a long time, but I will try my best not to be from stereotypes of other characters. I'll try to stay away from ranting, but it's going to be kind of hard. But I will try my best. And let's start off with the first thing. That this video, if I forgot to mention already, I'm sorry if I did, is based off my personal opinion and my experience I've had with the game over the years. And anyways, let's start this off. The first problem that I believe causes some of the toxicity, and that problem is balancing of characters. And you can't go with a video game about this, like For Honor, without talking about it. It's just something you can't really avoid. Character balancing has been a problem with this game basically since it ever released, and it does suck, but I'll get into why it's a problem. When you have 20 plus characters to choose from, and you have to make as a developer, it can be hard to find a way to balance them. I can understand that. I'm not a developer, but I'm pretty sure anybody can use common sense to understand that trying to make 20 plus things work and be compatible at the same time while trying to give them all unique things is not exactly easy. But at the same time, Ubisoft has definitely handled this poorly and not very managed. And these balancing problems, for example, is that many characters in the game have the ability to side attack, and which basically means, they can do a rapid dodge attack while usually taking no damage or minimal damage because of how fast it is. I mean, it works great, but that's just the problem. When you introduce mechanics into a game, you should generally implement them into the other characters. And if you don't, you're usually going to generate toxic behavior, and with this game, it's a problem. Some characters have hyper armor, which basically means they can attack whilst being hit, and they don't have any recoil for that at all. They can just still keep attacking, even if you're hitting them. Another mechanic that is in the game is the ability to attack, and the other opponent cannot dodge out of the attack, so if they try to dodge out of the way, it still lands on them no matter what they do, unless they fully back into the fight by rolling out of it. Another one that isn't as much of a problem, and it's not much of a problem because it requires a decent bit of skill from the player, and it's unfortunate you don't see it as often, but it's understandable why you don't, and that is deflecting and superior attacking. Deflecting means you have to dodge into the direction of the opponent's attack and press either your heavy attack button or your light attack button in order to basically counter their attack. And it works very nicely. It's a good mechanic, and it does take a good, decent bit of skill, and that's why you don't see it as often. Superior attacking, however, takes a little bit less skill. It's basically deflecting, but much easier. You just have to either press your heavy attack or your light attack, and you counter their attack while attacking them. And these mechanics are great and all, but the point is, when you introduce these abilities, it is vital to implement them into most characters, and for appropriate use, of course. And what I mean by that is, you want characters to be unique. You want people to play as them because each character has their own unique thing. Conqueror is really good at counterattacking and is a really defensive character. Shugoki is really good at dealing lots of damage while negating most of the other damage coming to him. And another example is, you want to have characters that are just in general fun I don't want to put it that way, but you want to make it so your game has a lot of diversity. And if you don't have that, it definitely does suck a lot of the fun out of the game. But that's good. You want that, like I said. But it's not the abilities themselves that are the problem. It is the way that the abilities are tweaked and handled. When you have characters that can simply just spam the same attack while not even getting hit, that's when it becomes a problem. And it's not, like I said, it's not a problem with the abilities. Let me say that again. It's not a problem with the abilities. It is a problem with how the developers handle the abilities. Hyper armor and the dodge property and all that other stuff. It's all great, but if you don't handle it properly, it becomes very broken. And I feel like you couldn't go through this video without mentioning Hitokiri. And Hitokiri is probably the reason why 6% of players get very angry with this game, and it's understandable. Let's just go delve into this. So, Hitokiri has some of the most broken mechanics out of any character in this whole game. And to start off, Hitokiri has hyper armor, as discussed earlier, on every single heavy attack. Not only that, Hitokiri can also do charged heavy attacks without a combo. So, most characters almost always, like Kensei, you have to do a combo in order to even get a heavy to charged heavy. Now, if you have any amount of skill, parrying a charged heavy from Hitokiri is pretty easy. But when it becomes a problem is when you can fake it for a guard break into a heavy. And it basically takes away almost none of your stamina at all. Another problem with Hitokiri are her perks. On top of that being one of the most broken characters as far as mechanic, she also has some of the most broken perks in the whole entire game. For example, the obvious one is that you can execute a player without being hindered while executing them. So you can have a bunch of people attacking you and you're still going to be able to execute that person. Now, this can be countered with some things like kicks and other attacks that don't generally deal damage but are meant to counter it. But there aren't a whole lot of attacks in the game that can do this, and that's why that's a problem. Now, the last ability is one of the most absurd abilities in the whole game, and it is probably the most frustrating ability in the whole game, as it is almost impossible to counter. And that's the final ability, which basically allows you to insta-kill a player. Now, this kind of ability should not be treated kindly, and unfortunately, it hasn't been fixed or patched or tweaked in any way that makes it balance. And just to show you how ridiculous this ability can be, in the game mode Breach, basically if you're the attacker, your goal is to kill the commander, and the commander has lots of health. You're gonna need your whole entire team cooperating to kill the commander. Hitokiri's ability that I was just discussing, I'm not positive because I have not seen it, but I know it can do at least half of the commander's total health in just that one perk. So if you had just 2 Hitokiris, you would be able to insta-kill the commander, and the enemy team couldn't even do anything about it, and the game would already be over. And that's a problem. And on top of that, the ability has a very fast cooldown for such a powerful perk. And that's another problem with it. Hitokiri is basically sums up all of the problems with this game's balancing issues and mechanics. And there's another character that was recently released that I think should also be brought up as another example for this, and that is Griffin, or Griffin, Gryphon, however you pronounce it, depending on where you live. Now, Griffin is not as bad as Hitokiri when it comes to being balanced. He's not bad. But his problems, for example, are he can do 2 light attacks very, very, very fast, and follow it up with a kick, which is pretty hard to dodge if you're not like in ultra focus mode. And if it lands, you can get a free heavy on it, and you can just dodge right after doing that. Do another kick just by doing a dodge attack, and you can already do another kick, land another heavy, repeat until you're dead. And if you're not really focused, like you haven't had 8 Red Bulls, it's kind of hard to dodge, and that's a problem. I don't think that necessarily is a major problem, but it is definitely something, like I said, that should be tweaked a little bit, like Hitokiri. Now, Hitokiri definitely, out of all the characters, needs to be tweaked the most. And the second thing I wanted to bring up with this is I don't want to come off as I'm targeting these characters in general. I'm simply using them to show the problems with this game. What I'm trying to say is, if you use these characters, it's whatever. You can choose whatever character you want. It's the whole point of games. You get to choose what you want to do. I'm just simply using these characters to show what's wrong with them, and also what's wrong with the game. So if you use them, like I said, it doesn't matter. Do whatever you want to do. I'm just simply using them to show what I'm trying to say. Now back to Griffin. Since his release, a good player can dodge the kick attack, and it's not really a problem. So if you're above, I don't want to say above average, most average players can usually dodge his kick attack if it's in a light combo and a slower combo. But if it's a side attack combo, it's usually harder for most players to be able to get out of that. And the problem, there are problems with these characters that I could delve more into, but they're not focus of this video. So they are something that needs to be in it and should be discussed, but I don't want to focus the whole video on this. Alright, now for part 2. And this one I think causes the majority of this toxicity to take place, and it is something that it needs to be fixed as soon as possible, and it is light spamming, or just being able to rapidly attack somebody while using hardly any of your stamina, while also dealing lots of damage and doing it ridiculously fast. And it's almost near impossible to react to this unless you are very good at the game and have been playing for hours and hours and hours. Or I should say, weeks. These attacks make the game very frustrating and boring for 3 reasons. 1, they allow the player to advance through the game using no skill or learning how to use the game's mechanics. 2, the characters that can do this also have follow attacks, or I should say almost always or usually have follow-up attacks that are devastatingly fast and are almost impossible to react to. And 3, this feature causes large amounts of negativity between players and splits the community into 2 parts. As you can imagine, let's say you're fighting and all a Highlander has to do is do 2 light attacks and can instantly pull off a heavy within the span of about 2 seconds, and you're already at 60% health. And it causes lots of toxic behavior, and I mean lots. And now for part 3. This one is big as well, it needs to be addressed, and that's that the game awards you for basically 4v1ing people. And what I mean by this is that even if you get revenge, it does not really matter at all, because the overwhelming force of just being attacked by 4 players at the same time, it does not matter. You're going to die before you can even fill your revenge meter back up again. An easy tweak to this would be if the game sees that you're still getting attacked by 4 people after the first revenge, the game should just feed you more revenge at a faster rate, and that would solve this problem so fast. I shouldn't even be having to discuss this because of how stupid this is and how easily it could be fixed, but yet here we are, because it just has not even been bothered to be discussed or fixed. And normally I would not bring this up, but for a game literally called For Honor, you would think that this kind of thing should not happen. But it does, and I have no idea why. The whole premise of this game is literally honor. So 1v1, or 2v1, or 3v1, or 4. Like, it's kind of ridiculous. And finally, the last part, and this one probably is the biggest of them all, and it's unfortunate. And that is Ubisoft's connection and interaction with the community. Fans of this game have asked over and over for Ubisoft to balance characters to make the game more fun. But they respond with a "I will get this done at some point" attitude, and half the time nothing even happens for months or even a year. And it's kind of mind-blowing that when they fix things, it's kind of crazy, and it shouldn't be crazy. It should be something that happens monthly. It shouldn't be something that happens like 6 months, every 6 or 7 months, or even a year, that we actually get a character balanced. That shouldn't be happening. The characters should be getting balanced within a span of a month or within weeks of the community complaining. But Ubisoft has been very, very slow about this, and I can understand for a game that has went from being comparable in popularity to Rainbow Six Siege to now being comparable in popularity to Pac-Man that you used to play in the 90s. And I get that. But at the same time, it shouldn't be used as an excuse to be very slow about fixing things. And I wouldn't care about this as much if it wasn't so bad, but it's bad. Like, we haven't had a patch for characters like Highlander or Orochi or Raider basically in months, and yet characters like this can still light spam their way to victory without using any skill of the player or any amount of practice or learning the mechanics. And when you have characters that basically are the equivalent to using your own script in the game, it makes the game very boring for other people, and it makes the game not fun. And it makes people angry because they try hard to actually learn the game, and yet they get killed by somebody who that's all they have ever done is press the same button over and over and still win, and then proceed to be toxic and And that's another problem I wanted to bring up, and that's that just the unnecessary toxicity in this community. You see a lot of it, and it's really sad. People will get so mad over the littlest of things in this community, and there seems to be even no reason for why some of the toxicity happens. It seems like some people be toxic just to be toxic in this game, and most of the toxic people are usually higher rep players, which doesn't really make sense. You would think the exact opposite, that lower rep players would be in general more toxic, but it's the higher rep players that you see usually being more toxic and less vulnerable. And I don't know why that is, but it is how it is. That is kind of how it is with this community sometimes.
Inner gate destroyed. Kill the commander.
And this video definitely has a lot of rant, and I've tried to minimalize it. It's very hard to, and I apologize for it. But sometimes I think rant just needs to happen. And I want to hear your opinions in the comments, and let me know if you agree or disagree. I don't want to force saying to subscribe, but if you enjoyed, I would definitely appreciate it if you would. But no worries if you don't. I want to know what I can improve in the future with my videos, and also what you think I did well. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in 6 months from now when I decide to upload again. Yep. Goodbye.